Radha Soami Mat Prakash. A Brief View of Radha Soami Faith is a book written by Rai Salig Bahadur in 1896. Radha Soami Faith not built on the scriptures of any religion, the efficacy of Surat Shabd Yoga testified by inspired religions. 24th. Radha Soami Faith is not built on the basis of scriptures appertaining to Hindu or any other religion, but on the precepts or instructions of the Supreme Being Himself, who appeared on this earth in human form and graciously performed the functions of a Sant Satguru for the benefit of degraded humanity. The original books of all inspired religions, however, bear sufficient testimony to the superiority and efficacy of the Surat Shabd Yoga as the only means and the only highway to the highest heaven. The internal sound current is the means of raising the spirit. Difference of Dunyatmak and Varnatmak names. The power of sound current or Shabd. 25. The sound heard internally is a current which has originally emanated from the Supreme Being, and is the means not only of concentrating the will, but also of raising the spirit to the source from which it emanated. 26. At the time of initiation, a novice receives instructions as regards the particulars of the Shabd of each subdivision by means of which he has to raise his spirit upwards. This is called Dunyatmak name, while that uttered by tongue is called Varnatmak name. 27. It must be clearly understood that by Shabd or word or internal voice is meant the spirit or life current which enlivens every part of the body and is the main principle or essence which supports life in and gives activity to every being or body in the whole creation or universe. Even in this world, everything is done by means of word or sound, and all affairs are managed through its instrumentality, as one speaks or gives order, and the other attends to it or carries it out into execution. The instantaneous effect of word or sound on human beings and even animals is so apparent in everyday experience of our life that it needs no further explanation. The state of spirit in the third degree. The change of its powers with the change of its spheres. 28th. At present the spirit of man is residing in the third or material spiritual region, and has therefore to do all the work here by means of the senses and the mind, which are mediums between it and the material objects, and consequently, as a natural result, its power has become quite hampered. But as soon as it begins to ascend, the powers which are now lying dormant become active and the spirit acquires ultra-material or higher powers. The method for taking back the spirit to its original source is to ride the sound current. 29. The method for taking back the spirit to its supreme source is first to concentrate at the focus of the eyes, the spirit and mind which are diffused in our body and in a manner tied to external objects by desires and passions, and next to commence its journey homewards by attending to the internal sound, or in other words, by riding the life or sound current which has originally emanated from the supreme source. 30. The current which has been instrumental in having brought it down here must naturally be the only true path for its return to the original source, and whoever finds this current is on the path of emancipation. This current, which is the spirit and life current, is called in the Radha Soami faith sound or word or holy name. Testimony of sound as given by other religions. 31. Other extant religions give also distant allusion to this life or sound current. For instance, in the Bible we find, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The Vedas have also Nad, or word, the Pranava, or and so others. The Shabd of Radha Soami faith distinguished from that of other religions. 32nd. but there is a difference between the word or sound, which is alluded to in the different extant religions, and that in Radha Soami faith. Their information is not confined to the word or sound of one and the same sphere. Some belong to the spiritual material, and some to material spiritual regions. While the word or sound mentioned by Radha Soami faith appertains to the first or highest spiritual sphere, these sounds are not nominal words or names like the names of common things, but are real sounds resounding in their appropriate spheres like the ringing sound of bell, shell, etc. The efficacy of the real name or sound to approach the center from which it emanates. 33. By merely repeating a name or word, the thing or substance which it designates or to which it appertains cannot be acquired, but by hearing a real word or sound, the center from which that sound is emanating can be approached. You cannot obtain bread by simply repeating the word bread, unless you go to a baker's shop and purchase it there. 34th. So by internal repetition of real holy words or names, one can only collect together at the focus of the eyes, the spirit which is diffused all over the body, but by internally hearing the sounds thereof, one can actually hold communion with, and gradually approach the centers whence these holy sounds or names emanate. Necessity of sincere prayer. 35. Prayer is necessary to obtain blessing and mercy to help man's perfect salvation, but it must be offered from the inmost of heart and not confined to mere utterance. It must also be backed up by works of faith and charity performed through love and affection for the Supreme Being. Necessity of sincere love for the Supreme Being. 36. Great stress is laid in the Radha Soami faith on engendering love for the Supreme Being. This can only be done when all worldly desires are gradually eradicated from the mind, and it becomes impressed to the inmost core with the unbounded bliss that might be attained by approaching the Supreme Being, Radha Soami. Love being attraction, it is quite plain that the devotional practice for approaching the Supreme Being will become very easy indeed if there is true love for Him, and devotion, instead of being a thing of duty, will be the highest and most blissful work in this world. Necessary restrictions as regards mode of living. 37. In following this mode of devotion, the following restrictions are made with regard to diet and mode of living. No intoxicating drink or drug and animal food is to be taken, and immoderate indulgence in any desire is to be avoided. Animal food is forbidden on account of its producing a material tendency in human nature, and intoxicating drink is detrimental to a calm and natural state of the brain and the nervous system. Other public and private duties should be carried on as usual. Definition of good and bad acts. 38. The moral code appertaining to Radha Soami faith is comprised in two sentences. 1. All acts including spiritual practice which tend to free the spirit from matter and raise it towards its source are good works. 2. All acts which tend to degrade the spirit by weighing it downwards deeper and deeper into matter are bad works. Again, any action done with a view to help the needy from unselfish motives is good work, and the contrary, bad work in this world. 39th. Radha Soami Dayal says that the highest aim and object of every spirit should be to gradually throw off the coatings of matter with a view to return to the Supreme Source. This is what he defines as good. To seek worldly objects, to set the heart entirely on worldly affairs, is a retrograde movement, and this is bad. The next aim of every human being should be to do good to his fellow creatures by thought, word, and deed as far as practicable, and to avoid injuring them except in the interests of society or for the good of many. Brotherhood of Radha Soami faith place of worship offering of flower garland. 40. Priests in the ordinary acceptation of the term find no place in Radha Soami religion. All the followers are originally equal and form one big brotherhood or fraternity. But the superiority of each member depends on the degree of love which he imbibes for the Supreme Being, and on the intensity of the desire he manifests to approach him. The more fervent members receive inspiration and preach to others, giving them also counsel. There are no temples and no shrines. Any house or even open air is equally fit for the purpose of worship. No place is more holy than another, except where the Sant Satguru resided while on earth. Each member of a congregation assembled for worship brings a wreath of flowers which he places round the neck of the preacher. Immediately or at the close of the service or Satsang, this wreath is returned to him and sanctity thus obtained. Radha Soami faith consists in 4 words. 41. The Radha Soami faith is comprised in 4 words, namely 1. Sant Satguru, 2. Sat Shabd or Satnam, 3. Satsang, 4th. Sat Anurag, or sincere love for the Supreme Being and Sant Satguru. 42nd. First, Sant Satguru. He has already been described above. 2. Sat Shabd, or holy and true name, is the sound proceeding from the original source. It undergoes some changes, or in other words, is enveloped in a sort of covering at every stair in its descent in material regions. By step is meant each subdivision or sphere. 3. Satsang is attendance on the Satguru, hearing his discourse, reading his works, and performing acts of faith and charity inspired by love for and a desire to approach the Supreme Being. This is external Satsang. Internal Satsang is the application of mind and spirit to the sound current at the time of practice and an effort to raise them to higher spheres. 4th. By sincere love is meant a strong, fervent desire and perseverance to approach the Supreme Being. This desire should outweigh all worldly desires. Superiority of sound practice over external religious observances. 43. It is evident from the above that all external works of charity, worship, pilgrimage, or mere reading of holy books, unless accompanied by internal practice of Surat Shabd Yoga, or the union of spirit and holy word, do not lead to true salvation, which can only be attained by raising the spirit to the first degree, or pure spiritual regions. One may reap the fruit of such acts by obtaining happiness in the same or a new body on rebirth, in the same or a higher sphere. But to approach the Supreme Being, there is absolutely no other means except the practice of Surat Shabd Yoga under the guidance of a Sant Satguru or a Sadguru, or a sincere lover of the Supreme Being who has received instructions from and is helped in his practice by one of those superior and holy spirits. Description of 3 natural states: wakefulness, dream, and sound sleep. 44. It is necessary to remark here that every human being passes through 3 states of life in every 24 hours, namely 1. The wakeful state in which he works with his senses and limbs, feels pleasure and pain, and comes in contact with other creatures and objects in this world. In this state, the principal seat of the spirit is in the pupil of the eye. 2. The dreamy state in which his connection with the corporeal body or outer covering and the senses as well as the external world ceases or is slackened. He has no sensation of bodily pleasure and pain, and all anxiety about worldly affairs in a manner disappears. In this state the spirit is drawn within and upwards to the astral sphere, where it dreams and comes in contact with astral creation, and works by means of internal mind and senses. 3. the state of deep and sound sleep, when all action of mind and senses ceases, and the spirit is drawn further inwards, and its connection with both the corporeal and astral bodies temporarily ceases. Breathing and motion of the heart and pulse continue, but in certain diseases such as catalepsy, as well as in the state of deep trance, etc., the motion of the heart and lungs also ceases owing to the spirit being withdrawn innermost. 45. It would thus appear that the connection of the spirit with the corporeal body and senses as well as the objects of this world is established during the wakeful state only. When the spirit current returns to its seat in the pupil of the eye, where the sensation of worldly pleasure and pain is experienced, and the mind, the senses, and the limbs perform their respective functions. This connection is temporarily severed when the spirit withdraws itself from its seat and all sensations and functions cease simultaneously. A similar change begins to appear when a man is dying, that is to say, his spirit current is gradually withdrawn from the extremities, and when the pupil of the eye is turned upwards and inwards, the spirit flies and its connection with the body ceases forever. The mode of devotion, as prescribed by Radha Soami faith, is the only means to approach the Supreme Being. 46. Radha Soami faith prescribes the means or certain mode of devotion whereby a man could at pleasure withdraw his spirit from its seat in wakeful state, and thus release it to a certain extent from the bondage of body and senses and slacken its connection with the outer world, and thus free himself to the same extent from pain and pleasure of this world, and retire temporarily to take rest and enjoy the bliss of higher spheres within himself. A man can traverse the regions of death and return to body at pleasure, or in other words, by practicing devotion for a certain length of time, one can withdraw his spirit to the point where death takes place and even beyond it, and can at pleasure bring it back to the seat occupied in the wakeful state and resume the functions of mind, body, and senses. 47. The benefits accruing from such a practice, viz., the enjoyment of bliss in higher regions within us and obtaining relief from the pleasures, pains, and cares of this world, as well as of the body, etc., are self-evident proof of the great importance and extraordinary usefulness of the mode of devotion prescribed by Radha Soami faith. This mode of devotion is the only and surest means of eventually attaining perfect salvation or complete liberation from the bondage of material coatings appertaining to the lower and higher regions of matter. 48. It is rightly inferred from the above that there is no other way to raise the spirit to the highest sphere but the one prescribed by the Radha Soami faith, namely, removing or raising the spirit gradually from its seat in the pupil of the eye, in the same manner as it rises or withdraws at the time of death, and by catching or riding the sound or life current to carry it back towards the main source from which it originally descended. This mode of devotion is free from all risk and danger and can easily be practiced by men and women of any age, literate or illiterate. 49. The mode of devotion referred to above is free from all dangers, and is so easy of practice that a child of 10 or 12 years, as well as an adult and the old, can perform it conveniently and comfortably at all times, without interfering with the daily business of life. The mind of the devotee will gradually, as he progresses in his practice, imbibe more and more love for the Supreme Being, intensifying his desire to approach him in the highest region and look upon the pleasures and objects of this world as trifling and transitory. Pran Yoga discarded as dangerous and unnecessary. 50. In times gone by, and even now, some persons consider Pran Yoga, or the practice of suspending breath and drawing it up to the 6th or 7th nervous center or ganglion, the seat of which is in the interior, behind the point between the two eyes, as a means for obtaining salvation. There is no doubt that this practice secures the liberation of spirit from the bondage of coarse matter in the third grand division. But in the first instance, the process is very difficult and is attended with danger in case of slight omission or commission as regards its rules and conditions. And secondly, the practitioner would still remain in the regions of matter, though pure, and therefore subject to rebirth and the pains and troubles attendant thereon. A man living with his family and pursuing his profession can hardly comply with the rigid and strict rules laid down for this practice, and even those who have renounced the world are scarcely able to carry out this practice without permanently endangering their health and thereby retarding their progress in the way of attaining their objects, namely, the raising of spirit to the 6th or 7th chakra or nervous center. 51. Moreover, the pran or breath current is dependent on the spirit or word current for its life and support, as when the latter is drawn inward to more than ordinary extent, the breathing is gradually stopped. Or in other words, the pran current also follows the spirit current, or is withdrawn from the body, and its action gradually ceases. 52nd. Again, the pran current is a subordinate agent to the spirit current, and its function is limited to certain automatic action in the body. As when the spirit current is withdrawn during the time of sound sleep, the function of senses and limbs ceases, and though the pran current or breathing continues its action, it cannot exercise any influence over the senses and limbs, which respond to the impulse from the spirit current only. The practice of pran yoga is, therefore, discarded by Radha Soami faith as difficult, dangerous, not carrying to the highest sphere, and therefore useless and unnecessary.